The night my son-in-law told me to leave my own living room was the night he accidentally destroyed the life he had been living, off for 4 years. What he did not know was that I had spent most of my career working with property records, and I understood something he never bothered to learn. Confidence means nothing when the paperwork says otherwise. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I was 69 years old when everything finally became clear. For years, I had allowed my daughter Madison and her husband, Tyler, to live in my house. What started as a temporary arrangement, after they fell on hard, time slowly became a permanent situation. I paid the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, and most of the groceries. They promised they were getting back on their feet. Every year I believed them. One evening I was sitting in my favorite chair watching the news. It was a small routine that brought me peace. Tyler walked into the room, stood directly in front of the television, and turned it off. The room instantly fell silent. Then he looked at me and told me to get out and go to my room because the living room belonged to him now. For a moment I thought I had heard him wrong. Then I looked toward the kitchen and saw Madison standing there with grocery bags in her hands. I waited for her to defend me. I waited for her to remind him whose house he was standing in. Instead, she lowered her eyes and said nothing. That hurt more than anything Tyler could have said. I stood up slowly, grabbed my keys, and walked out the front door. Tyler laughed behind me and made another rude comment, but I kept walking. I called a cab and checked into a hotel downtown. Sitting alone in that quiet room, I opened an old leather folder that I had not touched in years. Inside was the deed to my house. My name was the only name on it. The next morning, I called an old colleague named Richard Carter, an attorney who specialized in property disputes. After I explained everything, he told me exactly what I already suspected. Tyler and Madison were not owners. They were occupants living there only because I allowed it. That permission could be revoked. Within 24 hours, legal notice was delivered to the house. The phone calls started immediately. Madison was crying. Tyler was furious. He demanded to know how I could do this to family. I calmly reminded him that family does not order an elderly woman out of her own living room. Family does not spend years taking without contributing. Then I made another decision. I canceled the extra bank cards connected to my accounts. For years, Tyler had enjoyed access to money he never earned. The moment those cards stopped working, reality arrived. Suddenly, there was no grocery money, no spending money, and no safety net. A week later, we met in a conference room with attorneys present. Tyler walked in acting confident. But that confidence disappeared when documents were placed in front of him. Records showed mounting debt, failed investments, and financial problems he had hidden from Madison for years. I watched my daughter's face change as she realized the truth. The savings Tyler always talked about did not exist. The future he promised her was built on excuses and borrowed time. When the meeting ended, I gave them 30 days to leave. No extensions. No negotiations. For the first time in years, nobody argued with me. Over the following weeks, everything unraveled. Madison finally separated her finances from Tyler. She rented a small apartment near her job and started rebuilding her life. Eventually, she filed for divorce. One evening, she called and asked me a question I will never forget. She wanted to know if I would still be her mother after everything that had happened. I told her I would always be her mother, but I would never again protect her from consequences that belonged to someone else. On the 30th day, Tyler moved out. There was no dramatic showdown. No screaming. Just a moving truck pulling away from a house that had carried far too much weight for far too long. When I walked back inside, the rooms felt different, larger, lighter, free. I opened every window and let fresh air move through the house. I cleaned, repainted the walls, and put my favorite chair back where it belonged beside the window. A few days later, Madison visited. She knocked before entering. She no longer treated the house as something she was entitled to. She treated it with respect. We sat together drinking tea and talking honestly for the first time in years. That was when I realized the house had never really been the point. The real issue was boundaries. For too long, I believed that patience was kindness. I believed silence kept the peace. What I eventually learned was that silence often teaches people how much disrespect you are willing to tolerate. The moment I stopped paying for the lie, the truth revealed itself. Tyler lost the lifestyle he never earned. Madison gained the chance to build a life of her own. And I finally reclaimed something far more valuable than a house. I reclaimed my voice. If there is one lesson I learned, it is this: love does not require surrendering your dignity. Helping family should never cost you your self-respect. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. The day I finally said enough was the day my life truly became my own again.